Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Women in Leadership Talk podcast. Very excited to have Dr. Hannah Chan joining us today from Toronto. Dr. Chan, thank you so much for being here with us today and sharing your story.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here. Hannah, first of all, Hannah's great. Don't worry
Okay.
about the dog.
Okay.
Let's just make it simple. And I'm really excited to be here. I've watched some of your podcasts before, so you have some amazing women that come that you speak with.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, and my whole goal is how do I amplify more amazing women's voices? And you certainly are doing some incredible work. And so we thought it'd be great to have you on the podcast and just share like some of the new advancements that are happening. And, I know we're going to get into that in a minute, but before we do that, let me give the audience just a little bit of background about you so they have a sense of who we're talking to and why we're talking to you. So Dr. Chan is the Chief Operating Officer for Skinopathy, which is a Canadian medical data and AI company that is revolutionizing dermatology. She has a Master's of Health Management from McMaster University, an honors degree with double major in human biology and psychology from the University of Toronto, a medical degree from St. George University, and the first 2 years of her general surgery residency at Yale New Haven Hospital. She has recently completed a certificate from Harvard, and her program in clinical effectiveness is now using her skills in developing and implementing modern applications in the healthcare space. And I know your work, I know some of the things that you're doing, and I know Skinopathy, but what I would like to do today really is give you a chance to share a little bit about, what has led you to this work, and why is it important to you?
Yeah, so first of all, I would say I've never really imagined my career to have taken the path that it would take. But I think kind of looking back on it, I could see how every step kind of built on the last. So it started with my love for medicine and led to, my pursuit in medicine, like a pursuit of medical degree. But I've always kind of known I had a bigger perspective in terms of understanding, where things are in the world. And so I, after finishing medical degree and doing a couple of years of residency, I went back and I earned my master's in health management, a big master, like you said. And I just realized that I wanted to do a little bit more beyond just the practical day-to-day medicine. And I really wanted to improve the way healthcare works. Kind of fast forward, here I am like COO of Skinopathy, and it's a company that really pushes boundaries of AI in healthcare. So my role now is a little bit mixed. On one hand, I get to develop tools in making healthcare better when it comes to managing skin conditions like skin cancer. But on the other hand, I get to spend a lot of time thinking about how to make these tools work and where does it fit in our day-to-day lives, whether it's from the clinical perspective or for patients as well, right? And so it's really fascinating to see how technology like AI can support doctors, make it quicker and easier, more accurate to diagnosis, but also at Skinopathy and myself, I'm also mindful that, technology can never really replace that human element in care. Which is why I continue to do research in the clinical space, continue interacting with patients and understanding, what the challenges are from their perspective as well.
Wow, I love that. And, you highlighted a few things there that probably the masses, no matter where you are in the world, whether it's Canada, US, Europe, there is this backlog on healthcare, right? Like since the pandemic, we've been having so many more challenges, let's say, and even getting into a doctor or a diagnosis. And so how do you see the use of AI supporting that or helping to reduce that amount of time that it takes to get in?
Yeah. So, when we talk about AI and using AI as a tool, there's all these different areas and different aspects that we can use AI in. Specifically, the work that we've done at Skinopathy and the research that we've done is basically do two things. Number one, put a tool in the hands of patients so that they can better understand what's happening with their body. The other thing is using that tool to help patients kind of guide patients into where to go when you are given all this information. So we could, a lot of times we use Dr. Google a lot and we're just like, oh, this is, maybe what it is. This is maybe what it is. And you're like, not sure. And for some people, they don't really understand if something is dangerous or not dangerous, right? You're just given this plethora of information. What we do is kind of take that information that you've given us, give you kind of a general understanding of what it could be, and then tell you, hey, like these are the next steps. And the other way that going back to how AI is used, the other way we've used it is kind of using that understanding of what is dangerous and not dangerous, and then triaging patients in a way that connects those who really need urgent help first into our virtual care platform where we connect patients directly with doctors, and the doctors can also confirm and tell you, hey, like what the AI is saying is right and we need to kind of proceed on with your management of care, or hey, like like you really don't need to come in person, like we can just manage your care virtually. So like AI has a lot of different use, and from the patient's perspective, that's how we're helping them, just kind of getting them in faster and more appropriately and making sure that they're seeing the right doctor. From the clinical side, AI has been used as a tool to expedite the administrative burden. A lot of times there's a lot of paperwork associated with it. There's a lot of reliance on the physician and the physician's time to kind of make sure that even with respect to triaging, making sure the patient's seen at the right time, within the right time frame, and you're seeing the right person. With AI, we're able to automate that a lot more now and just make the lives of physicians easier.
Nice, nice. Well, and when you do that, then that frees up more time for the in-person care that's required, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It just, and the other way, AI has been used, I think, at least in my company, is kind of be able to identify patients that really are suitable and for like clinical trials. Sometimes people have diseases that are more severe that really need that extra help or to be put into more innovative spheres in terms of treatments. And kind of the way we're gathering our information and like putting that picture of a patient together really puts them at the forefront of trials and furthers research.
Yeah, which is great. So what have been some of the biggest challenges so far? Because a minute ago you mentioned, the risk, right? And there's a lot of media attention around AI, and is it being used for good? Can it be used for harm? Like, so people are, I would say, sitting on the fence a little bit. So what have you seen as some of the biggest challenges, I guess is how I'd want to word it.
So I think the risk associated with using AI is similar to risks associated with any powerful tool. The real challenge lies in our understanding of how and when to use it. As a lot of times when we don't understand something, we have a tendency to just trust whatever it's saying or not trust what it's saying. So it's kind of like one or the other. Take, for example, the internet 10 years ago. I already mentioned Dr. Google. We are really good at going to the internet to search for things when we're feeling unwell now. And while there's like a lot of resources out there, including PubMed and Google Scholar, which is like really invaluable in its use, it's really easy to fall the trap of taking online information at face value. So I've had a lot of discussion even with family members kind of who latch onto these research findings and then they just take it as like fact, whereas like I kind of have to explain to them, like, not all research is done amazingly well, and you can't always take what they're saying and apply it across all situations. So AI works in a similar principle. It has the ability to analyze a vast amount of data and generate answers for you, but the accuracy of that AI really hinges on the quality of the data.
Right.
So, for example, if AI is only trained on data from Canada, it might not perform as well when you're, crossing into other countries or continents where the population varies. Um, or yeah, so that's kind of one of the biggest challenges with respect to AI, like understanding where that data is gathered from and where it should be applied. And I think there's a lot of work that we need to do in terms of educating people when it comes to utilizing these tools.
Yeah, I would agree with you because you see two camps, right? It's
Mhm.
either you're ever, people are on board and there's always this fear of what about the human element? And so what I'm
Mhm.
hearing from you is making sure that human element is there, right? And you're
Yeah.
looking at case by case. But what you just said struck me interesting because that's very true. Even if you look at gender, right? Like things that affect men can happen one way and it affects women very differently, right? And so it's not kind of cookie cutter. It's also the input that you put into it. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely say that. I think AI tools can make our lives definitely easier. Like I see kids using ChatGPT all the time. And it's great. Like it kind of gives you kind of those succinct, detailed answers. But sometimes what we're doing is there's a bigger element to whether children should be using ChatGPT all the time. Because while we're in school, that's when they're developing their critical skill thinking skills, and they might not have the plethora of information that you and I have into saying, hey, like, is ChatGPT saying like something that kind of goes um, according or similar to my worldview or my understanding of how the world works, or is it like something vastly different, right? And children basically don't have that exposure. And it's the same thing with me. Like if I were to research about mechanical engineering or something like that, like I don't have that perspective. So being able to have that critical thinking and being able to say, hey, like maybe I need to research this a little bit further beyond what ChatGPT is saying is like super important.
Yeah. Yeah, totally agree. And that was a great example you just shared because we do as a society tend to blanket things
Mhm.
and it's important that we understand what the input is to get the right output, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I loved how you talked about how it can simplify and speed that process. Do you see, so this is in dermatology where your expertise lies and where you're really focused. Do you see this happening more across healthcare in general?
Yeah, well, definitely. Um, so we have to remember that AI, even though there's kind of this explosion of tools and a lot of talk about AI in the last, I say, 2 to 4 years, like AI has been existent for over 20 to 30 years. It's like technology that's been kind of developed over time. And AI in medicine has been utilized in different I would say different disciplines
Mhm.
for several years. For example, in radiology, AI has been introduced almost in the early 2000s, and it's just been kind of adopted through time. And that was because 15 years ago, we were developing something called computer vision, where it is able to kind of pick up pictures and understand what pictures are saying, when it's how we say like normal pictures versus like abnormal findings and things like that. So in the radiological space, it's been used for almost over 15 years. But I think with the new advances in terms of computer vision, as well as large language models, it's kind of really exploded into that space where in medicine now everyone's like, oh, where can I apply these tools? So it's a really interesting time in medicine because we're seeing these tools being utilized, but then at the same time, I think we need to approach it with a sense of caution as well. Like, not necessarily because AI is going to take over the world, but in terms of like, is it appropriate for you to be using that tool or applying that tool all the time? And it goes back to the idea of critical thinking with children, or even what they've been finding with say automation in pilots, right? Like a lot of times we say, you know, these jumbo jets now like pretty much fly themselves, but is it always the greatest? Like we know that in a normal perfect environment the jumbo jet will fly better than any pilot can ever fly, right? But like there are situations where you're not flying in the most perfect environment. There could be rain, there could be thunderstorms and things like that,
Sure.
where the automation and the piloting doesn't work well. And it's the same thing in terms of technologies that we use. And so we have to make sure that, you know, we're applying these tools in a way that is actually helping clinicians, physicians, patients, but it's not going to take away that basic critical thinking and that basic application, so that you look at everything again in the case by case kind of situation and know when to apply it and trust it and know when not to.
Yeah, I think what you just said there is so important. And I hope our audience really captured the essence of that, because I think that's true in all aspects of technology, period, right? Like you still have to have that knowledge to question it. And is it appropriate for this situation? And knowing when that human element is so critical versus how do we use it to expedite, right? Like
Right.
healthcare is a challenge all over the world, right? Having enough doctors, nurses, all these things. And so if we can take some of that burden off, that's great, right? And as long as we're using it for the right reasons.
Exactly. I mean, just to give you kind of how an understanding how vast healthcare is, I actually just looked this up before the interview because I know that, you know, like every day there's a lot of research articles being published and new things coming out about in all different realms of medicine. And like, um, I think every day there's between 3,000 to 4,000 published articles being released onto like the internet. And there's no way any individual can kind of keep
Exactly.
up with that, right?
Much
It's kind
less
of
do your day
insane.
job, right?
Right, exactly. But like what AI has the ability to do is kind of centralize. Okay, like you're a hematologist. I can kind of centralize all that information, relevant information, and give it to you, and so that you can see, you know, where the trends are going, where the new treatments are happening, you know, where the new protocols are going, and then kind of determine for yourself, hey, like I want to look into this a little bit more, read up on the article and be more educated from this sense, rather than have to go through, you know, 4,000 articles. Like you won't even be able to do it in a week, right? Like,
Yeah.
and you know, let alone kind of understand what every one of them are saying.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great analogy. So when you think about skinopathy, right? Like you guys are revolutionizing dermatology. So what's that ultimate vision and what's next for skinopathy?
I think for skinopathy, we're doing we're doing a lot of different things at the same time. But what's really interesting about what skinopathy is doing is we're not focusing on a single data set of information. So we have tools that we put in the hands of patients where it gathers images from their day-to-day lives, kind of through this longitudinal perspective, and also gathers information about how they are interacting with the world. How is that disease process impacting them, kind of inhibiting them, or how is the treatment helping them, right? And we're actually kind of seeing that progression through time. And then we're also collecting information, what we say is more objective information in the clinical setting, where that clinician is like talking to the patient, engaging with the patient, and recording information in terms of how they're seeing this patient, their disease and their transformation process. And what we're doing is we're able to now take information from both perspectives and kind of put it together to get a much deeper and better understanding of the patient, which I believe is going to lead to better alignment between the clinician and the patient themselves in terms of goals of care, but also be able to kind of predict where the disease is going in the future, as well as predict what treatment methods is going to help for these patients.
Yeah.
So I think that's one like very, very small piece, an interesting piece that we're able to do because we're engaging both sides of the clinical encounter. The other things that we're doing is looking for more partnerships. Like we talked a little bit about challenges with respect to AI and making sure that you're getting high quality data that is equitable and diverse, right? Like in order for AI to work well across different populations, we got to make sure that the data we're collecting is actually reflective of what is happening in the world, not just what's happening in Canada. So we're forming a lot of international relationships to make sure to work together, right? Like healthcare is huge. Like it's, like we're so happy to like form relationships, work with people, and really kind of build more robust data sets to really help people that we're going to be engaging in the future.
Love that. Love that. And that's such a critical element, especially where we are in our world today, because we're not just Canada, North America. We're a very big, robust world. And, we have Canada, especially, we're so multicultural. You have to understand how things affect different people differently, right? And we talked about gender a little bit, but way beyond gender, right? And so that becomes really critical. So I love hearing that you're forming partnerships and I know you guys are out there talking to people and educating on the importance of responsible AI and how to use that to really accelerate the work in dermatology and healthcare overall, which is wonderful. And so what about for you, Dr. Hannah? What is next for you?
Well, definitely seeing, like, I really want to, so I've actually done a lot of work kind of outside my clinical practice, work overseas, doing some NGO work in Asia, parts of Asia, and South America and things like that. And I really do think AI has the ability to make healthcare more equitable. And that's probably, one of the first reasons and main reasons why I entered into healthcare. So definitely continually working here with Skinopathy in this space to see how we can apply it and research and understand how in the public from a public health perspective, how we can change that, not only making allowing more remote patients from accessing care, but also I think over time, hopefully the tools and automation and everything we built actually improves healthcare where that access can be expanded and beyond Canada, but also standardized in a way that that everyone across the world can be treated similarly because the cost of health can be, decreased significantly through these tools and automation that we're building.
Yeah, yeah, love that. That's awesome. And I would be remiss if I didn't ask because you mentioned traveling to, South America, Asia. You've got a full practice in Canada and building partnerships. So I'm sure a lot of especially the women in our audience are thinking, how do you juggle all of those things? And I'm not going to use the word balance because I don't think there is a balance. How do you juggle all these different moving parts all the time?
Very cautiously, I would say. Well, first of all, I have to say I don't practice full time. I most of my practice and work is through the clinical trial space. So a lot of the research, that's where I do my interactions with patients.
Okay.
But very little sleep, I would say. But no, joking aside, I think really kind of working with my team. My team is amazing. Like Skinopathy is full of a team of very dedicated and passionate individuals, and I mean together we spur each other on, and so heavy reliance on the amazing people in our team, like our data scientists. Keith, who's the CEO of the company, he goes out there and makes sure that we're, the world knows about us and can find partnerships with us, and then also working very closely with the medical side, like Dr. Hong, who's the other co-founder of the company. A lot of guidance from him because he's had 30, 40 years of practice. So I think the team itself, at Skinopathy, I would have to say is amazing, and just kind of relying on my team members to help, and knowing that they will come in and really help where my abilities are lacking, is the thing that keeps me kind of grounded and continue going forward.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Well, so you heard that, audience. It's really important to have a great support network around you, so that you can accomplish all these things that you're trying to get done. So Hannah, thank you so much for taking time with us today. Is there any last words you would like to share with our audience, something for them to walk away with today, you want to really drive home, I guess is where I would like to emphasize.
Yeah, I think AI is going to be it's going to be an amazing tool. I have to say, like, and we should use it to our benefit and not be fearful of it, but we should also make sure that we're informed and we understand its limitations, so that so we can use it, like you said, responsibly. And that's what, the work that we do with responsible AI is always about, right? Guiding and making sure people are applying these tools in a responsible manner.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. So you heard her. Don't be afraid. Check it out. Educate yourself about AI. It's not that scary. And if we are focused on doing good, we can do a lot of really good things with the support and the help of the tools of AI. So thank you again for being here with us today. It's been such a pleasure learning about your journey. You've got, a huge list of accomplishments, and I know that we'll continue to see more from you and from Skinopathy. So thanks for being here. And I want to thank our audience for being here. We're grateful that you continue to listen to the We'll Talk podcast. Share with your friends. If you have somebody who's on the cusp of, do I like AI? Do I not? Share this episode with them so that you can help educate them, but also educating yourselves on the power of AI. And if you're interested in having a free gift, you can visit our Will Empowered website, and we have a two-part mini series that you can sign up for on habits and how to overcome fear to help it fuel you instead of paralyze you. So check those two out, and that's on our website at www.willempowered.com. And we hope you'll join us on our next We'll Talk podcast. So take care, everyone. Have a beautiful day. And Hannah, thank you again for being here. Super grateful to you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege to be online with
Thank you.
Bye-bye.